For more information on my programs, please visit masajady.com. That's MASSAJADY.com.
This is free public service, the divine feminine, or feminine divine, whichever way. Okay, either way, it's all good, right? So it's all divine. That's what we're talking about. I'm glad to see a few guys here, which is really nice. Because, as we understand ourselves, whether we're male or female, right, we'll understand the counterparts of that. Because both sides are needed. And what we'll do, and those people online, welcome. Thanks for your patience online as well. A lot of people online, actually. What we'll do is we'll just jump into a meta healing, because it's not really about, say, what I talk about. It's really about the frequencies that I generate. Okay. And how many people are new, like in the audience? Okay. Just a few. Oh, enough. Okay. Sounds good. So, you guys will have a chance to say, come on up. If you want to, you can ask me questions and I can work on you. Just to kind of show you, say, the frequencies or the level of frequencies that I talk about. And even there's a lot of people online as well that are new. So we'll talk about, say, the frequencies that I generate or how I shift people. So it's not just going to be about the divine feminine, although that's, the path that we're, say, always our trajectory. All right. So whether you're online, whether you're here, as a note before I forget, hopefully Faye can watch out for questions. If you guys have questions online, type them in. Don't make it a whole paragraph, guys, because it's way too long to read. Just a couple sentences will suffice. Just get to the point, and then I'll be glad to answer your questions online. So we'll take care of that as well. All right. Whether you're sitting or standing or lying down, let's just get comfortable. I'm just going to sit right here. That way I can generate, say, better frequencies. As I get comfortable, you guys go ahead and get comfortable too. Again, sitting, standing, you guys can lie down if you'd like. Let's go ahead and take a nice, strong, deep breath in, just noticing where you are, noticing the space around you. If you're new, it's very different, say, than a meditation or hypnosis or NLP or anything that we've tried before. I can explain the differences later, but for now, just pay attention to your body, right? The way you're sitting or the way you're standing, whether you're at home, whether you're at here. As you pay attention, notice the sounds around you. Notice my voice, although I might be over here, broadcast over the speakers. Notice the quietness that comes over space. And then a strong breath in again, connecting to that mastermind, the group dynamics. It allows us to go further, faster, allows us, say, to disconnect from where we are, or actually who we are, so we understand ourselves better. And then a strong breath in again. So I'm asking ourselves, how do I connect to Pure Source even stronger? Get that question, how do I connect to Pure Source even stronger as we settle in? Settling into whatever we're sitting or standing, lying down on. And what we'll do is we'll start generating frequencies, say, of that optimal individual that you could be, in this case, a strong female or a strong male. Not so much getting into the divine, although that's the trajectory, the levels that we're at. It might be too far of a stretch since we've lost our identity of being a true female or male. So the most powerful version of our identity of who we are. That's what we're aiming for in this meta healing. So as I generate those frequencies for you, if you're a male, obviously the male version of that frequency, all you have to do is take a strong, deep breath in. Pay attention to your spine, your lower spine, tailbone. And noticing your mid-back. Just notice how you're feeling, whether you're here, whether you're online. Let's go ahead and take a nice, strong, deep breath in. And continue to generate those strong, say, female frequencies. Or again, if you're male frequencies. Some of you might feel that frequency right away. So notice how that feels like. And if you're not feeling it, no worries, whether you're here or online. Just noting your breath. And then noticing your face. Noticing your cheekbones. Your cheeks. Your eyes, your nose, your lips. Helping you really shift into, say, that strong identity of a woman or a man. As we go deeper yet, just noticing your throat, noticing the top of your chest, As we take a strong, deep breath in, perhaps feeling that strong female frequency, male frequency, whichever one you are. Repurposing or re-identifying who you are from your solar plex, again, from the ribs on up. If you were that strong female version, right, that divine feminine as we call it, very different than society's standards of a strong female, how would that feel like internally for you? How would you identify yourself if you go into your mind's eye? Notice how that would feel like. Has more confidence, more completeness. There's no victim type frequencies in you. Just, again, pure confidence. Confidence that does not come from any of society's values, money, title, who you know, who you're married to. Again, a deeper knowing of who you are, that sense of deeper knowing. That's what that divine feminine frequencies are all about. So helping you instill your original source code of being that strong divine female. So these frequencies that help you generate will help you come into your sense of self from the inside out, not from the outside in. Go and take a strong deep breath in. Keep that frequency in place from the solar plex on up. And as we become aware of that upper half, noticing your neck, noticing your head, noticing your face, opening your eyes, going back into this moment in time, feeling relaxed, refreshed, or if it is a detox, whatever that you might be feeling. As a note, the frequencies that I generate, yes, they are of, say, frequencies, in this case, of the feminine divine, or if you're a male, frequencies of the male divine. Other issues that you might have also help come into a higher standard. Okay, this is an open forum. You guys can ask me questions if you'd like. I'll walk around with the mic. We only have one mic. Okay, so it is an open forum, but let's keep it on track. We'll keep it on the divine. And what we're going to go through is start to understand, say, from my perspective, and then from EI, Exponential Intelligence perspective, what a strong female perspective is, or how a strong female, and how it affects society, children, and well, humanity as a whole. So we'll start there, and this was the first frequency, or the first meta healing was about, say, that first intention of helping you get that taste. We'll do a few more, say, meta healings like that throughout the talk. Where I'll help you, say, create stronger and stronger feminine frequencies. Does that make sense to you guys? Okay. Did you guys feel that, or feel different? Is it, say, different than, say, your normal understanding of what a strong woman is, right? So why is that? So let's just start off there. And again, feel free to ask questions just by raising your hand. And those people online will be monitoring the site for you. So, in most of today's society, women, they come from a disrespected space. Okay? It's not just about today. Over time, it's happened that way. right? Over thousands of years, women in well, we were just talking earlier, even in the Bible or in in the Quran or other Abrahamic type religions, they talk about, say, women coming from a rib of a man, right? Again, a second-class citizen. So that frequency, I don't know how people can believe that, but I guess there's billions of people who believe that pattern that women came from a rib of a man. Um, uh, let's not get into that space. However, there's billions of people who say understand that and take that as, say, the gospel or the truth, right? Just like a lot of distortions. Unfortunately, whether it's true or not, if there's enough people who believe in, say, whatever that's believed in, well, that becomes a frequency. Okay? And then you are, as a woman, under that pattern or under that program. So we're going to get into, say, the quantum physics of how women became distorted or abused, okay, or victimized. And by the way, it's not men that did it to you. You had all part in it as well. Okay? So don't shirk the blame or anything like that. Again, you're all part of it as well, because you guys think that way as well. Right? If you look in your, say, mother's background or whoever, or even in you might actually say believe that. Look how many other, say, nonsensical type of patterns that you might believe in as being a woman as well. Okay? And that's why that frequency that I generated for you, the original divine frequency that you should be resonating at, and I'm not pointing blame or anything like that, but I'm just showing you the difference between how you became who you are and who you even thought of being a strong woman compared to the actual, say, frequency that you actually originated from. By the way, that's not my definition of a strong, say, divine female. That's exponential intelligence frequency, so your original source code. Okay. For those people who don't know me, I had 2 near-death experiences. From that, I've opened, say, the space of knowledge that I call exponential intelligence. It's not the knowledge that I've derived or developed. It's not that I founded it or anything like that. It's just that I've accessed, say, that consciousness, that level of consciousness, those higher levels of consciousness, where, say, finite, right? Certainty exists at its, say, purest form, or at 100%. Because at the lower levels, if you think about it, any say rule, there's always an exception to it. Does that make sense to you? Right? At those higher levels, or what I call EI consciousness, there's no exceptions. It just is. It's just that single truth. So I've managed to open up to that space after, say, 2 near-death experiences, and from that space, I operate out of that space. So those are my rule sets. Those are, say, the morality standards that I follow. And as a matter of fact, when I talk about things, most individuals, say, understand it, or it rings true to them deep inside, although they might not, say, resonate, at a conscious level. The reason being that at that consciousness level, we're all, say, in unison, or we all understand each other at that level, because that's our base, say, pure essence or pure self. Does that make sense to you guys? Okay. So what I do is I bring that frequency or that knowledge into this physical form, and that's how, say, I adjust your frequencies, basically changing your frequencies, or what you might call programming or conditioning or behavior patterns. And this is where people, they transform their lives magically, or rather quickly, whether it's like diseases, whether it's physical issues, financial issues, relationship issues, in this case, say, the divine feminine, understanding being a strong woman. Okay, so that's my background. I've worked, about 6 years, tens of thousands of people, probably the fastest way to transform your life from what people have told me. Okay? Because what I do works from the inside out versus the outside in. So that's just a little brief for those people, because there's a lot of new people online as well. So getting back to the divine. So in today's society, what most women think of is that they're weak individuals. And although you might think that you're a strong individual, you have that pattern or that DNA structure deep inside you, like we talked about, as, say, second-class citizens. You're just an inherent part, right? And there's no offense, but, say, people of colored skin, right? Black individuals, right? No matter what they do, they have an inherent part of being black, right? And they identify with that. Unfortunately, for example, in this scenario, the flip side is to us as well, right? If we're, say, somebody looking at a black individual or yellow-skinned individual or Chinese or whatever, or women, on the flip side, even if you're not prejudiced, that frequency runs in you as well because we're conditioned to be that way. Does that make sense? For most individuals, we are not awakened enough to pull away from those, say, prejudices. So that's why even, say, the most benevolent individual in today's society, and there's not a lot of those, we would still, say, run that pattern, and then we would delete that pattern or, say, not act accordingly to that pattern of, say, abusing women. Does that make sense to you guys? So it's almost like we have to, say, maintain a level or a filter from our own standpoint so it's not an automatic reflex. The key is in exponential intelligence, or what we're trying to do here, is like, well, how do we get rid of that underlying program that exists in pretty much everybody on classifying, say, women, and again, men as well, but this is a women's group, on women, right, to delete it completely so we don't have to, say, put laws into place or rules into place to make women equal. And then talking about equality and stuff, women aren't equal to men and vice versa. Although most of society, that's what we want, right? If you look at the women's movement, the Me Too movement, or anything like that, what do we want? We want equality with men. And why the hell would women want that? Would you really want that? Although most of the women out there that are fighting for your right, they would want that. You wouldn't want that because you're women. You're not a man. That's why you look different than men, right? You want to identify who you are. So you don't want equality as a man. You want to be a strong woman, that divine woman, that strength woman. In fact, I know a lot of, say, strong women. They're very successful individuals. They'd never be abused or so on. Right? They're not very happy because they're using, say, a man's frequency to create success and wealth. They're just not complete. I know a ton of them. Right? And they're very, say, beautiful, or what you would call that perfect woman from the outside. On the inside, not so complete. So why does that happen? So again, this goes way beyond, say, society standards or humans' definitions of, say, a woman or what a woman, say, represents. Does that make sense? Does that open up, say, questions to anybody? Does anybody have questions? Feel free. Yes. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. Right. That's a great question. I see you're having 5 kids, actually. Did you lose one? Yeah. So that child, by the way, is still around you. Okay. So let's help them cross over, because if that child is still around you, right, although they're not here in physical form, it distorts you, and then you misrepresent yourself as you can't be a divine, strong female if you have, say, somebody dead. Literally, that's what they're hanging out with you. It actually distorts this young man as well. Does that make sense? Because he senses things, he sees things around him. Does that make sense to you? Yeah. So in that case, in that scenario, he's, and again, I'm not trying to get personal or anything, but if you don't mind, since there's not a strong male presence around him, does that make sense? So, right, yeah, I kind of see him. He's really emotionally sensitive. But anyway, so he latches on to you, and then he starts to think that, well, and at that age, right, although he identifies that he's male, let's just say, and this is how society gets distorted, by the way. So if you don't mind, we'll just expand on your example, because it's a physical life example, and then you can agree with me or not agree with me with what I say or what I see in you, right? But just think, so this example, over generation after generation after generation, right, of distorted individuals, look how far off we've gone. Okay, and that's why that identity, that first exercise that we did, that's why we're so far off in a divine female. So in your scenario, he doesn't have, say, a male role model complete, right? Because most males, again, they don't know each other. So, and well, you're the strong person in the family. So what does he do? He latches onto you, not just like, the way he is in physical form, but at spirit level, he's like wrapped around you. Does that make sense? So basically, if you have an ache or pain or emotional distress, he'll have that same distress, right? And then vice versa. So right there, right off the bat, does that look like a healthy relationship? Okay? It's pretty hard to grow and expand, and it burdens you as well. And then later on, you'll raise kids that will always say burden you, right? And again, that's where society gets off kilter. So coming back to your question, for you really have to identify who you are. Most of the time, you don't know who you are. Most of you is, say, almost like the same ingredient as your mother, from what I'm seeing, right? And although you identify, which is really good, you're halfway there. Maybe that's why you're here. You identify, for example, that, wow, I'm running mother's pattern. And mother wasn't a very strong woman, let's just say, right? A realized woman. So the thing I like about you is that you realize it, but you're in that rut. So how the hell do you get out of that rut? So that's half the battle, by the way. So that's why you're here, and that's, again, working on you. So once you start to understand all those patterns that you're not, now that, and this is why these meta healing that we'll do throughout the session is so important, so you can actually have a strong, say, role model, because there's not a lot of role models out there in the world. You can name me any woman, and I'll tell you if they're a strong woman or not. Okay, is that fair? No matter who you pick. Mother Mary? Mother Mary? She's all right. She seems like she's always, back in the day, being a woman, she was always oppressed as a woman, so she couldn't really, say, identify herself as a strong, say, woman, right? She had to be, say, come from a strong, say, male perspective, although deep inside, again, and in those times, you couldn't be, say, that strong feminine person, or you wouldn't be taken, say, serious. So, again, a strong woman, sure. But a complete, divine, the way we're supposed to be? No. Yes. Sure. Can you talk into the mic, sorry? Can you make it short, though? Make it short? Otherwise, I'll cut you off. Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Mm-hmm. Sure. That's a real good question. And again, another, say, example, and so we'll go delve deeper, if you don't mind, into that as I read you. And again, this is how society's gotten off kilter, and then we have a total different definition of, say, what it is to be a strong woman. In most of today's society, we get the definition of being a strong woman from, say, media, news, and all that. And again, they have no clue. Again, no offense, right? But they actually see it from a very different perspective. I see it from an EI perspective, again, that one true. And it doesn't matter if you're of a different culture, a different religion, different whatever, you're still a woman, and that's the basis that we're going to. So, for example, for you, and there's a lot of women and there's a lot of men that actually run this pattern, you guys are confused at a frequency level. So at a programming level, say, like, for example, your father didn't really identify who he was. He was both man and woman, just as similar to you, right? You kind of flip back and forth. You have an identity of not a perfect, say, woman, frequency and not a perfect man frequency. So again, you're kind of like in between. That's why you have those type of relationships. And even if you're a man frequency, you're in a woman's body, you would say tend to get, say, abused or distorted because you're running, say, a weak male frequency. If you're running a weak male frequency, you'll normally get abused by anybody. It's just like the law of the jungle, right? The animals that we are. So that's why. Some of the experiences that you've had. So that's got nothing to do with you. It's not your fault, but that's the program that's run in you generation, from what I'm seeing, generation after at least 5 or 6 generations back, from what I'm seeing. At some level, your identity of being just being a male and female got lost. Does that make sense to you? So it's just run down through the DNA structure. One thing, just one second. One thing I'd like to talk about too is that, and that as I get, say, what's on people online, I can read, the general tendencies, and then you guys as well. Women go, well, if women dominated the world, there wouldn't be any wars or anything like that. In fact, that's not true at all. Right, and there's proof. Back in the day, there was women's societies that dominated the cultures, right? And they ruled the men. They actually they just used the men as sperm banks, right? They oppressed the men just like the women oppressed, just like the men oppress, say, women nowadays, right? And we'll talk about, say, oppression. And who's oppressing who, by the way, as well. But back in the day, and you can go read about it, I forgot which culture it is, right? So the women were the dominant. They got to the point that they figured that they didn't need men anymore, and then hence the demise of their culture, right? They eliminated all men, pretty much. Okay, what kind of thought process was that? So women cultures have survived or have been around. They weren't any successful. If they were, they'd still be around. Okay? So, did you have a question, Sweetie? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, just to reiterate for the people online, so you have this divine energy that's been tarnished. How do you get it back? Is that what you're asking? Right. That trauma has tarnished your divine frequency. Well, that's true. And as I scan you or read you, if you've noticed, there's always, say, patterns of being tarnished over and over again for you. Although you try to reach out for good, right? So you actually play that perfect, say, victim role, that you're always, say, on the bottom, right? And you're always, say, fighting for your right. Does that make sense to you? Okay. So if you're running that pattern, and this is where the Me Too frequency, and this is where Anthony Robbins probably got in trouble, and maybe he should have defined it more and so on like that. But this is what I think he was actually trying to say is like, if you're running, say, a victim mentality, right, you will attract, say, victim type scenarios for you. Okay, so not to back him up or anything like that, but again, he should have clarified at the level that he's at. But so for you, you're always trying to say, and you always get to, say, a point or to the top, and then right before you can, say, have success, everything falls down on you. Does that make sense? And then you recycle down. So that's the deeper pattern that you're running. Right? So and again, just talking about it, whether you're running it, the people online, if you're running of similar frequencies as I talk about these patterns, I'll be working on you to help, say, release those patterns as well. Okay? So if we didn't know that, right? And again, through my abilities, I can just scan you. I can just see your program, just like I used to be a computer programmer. Right? They go, Moss, hey, this page didn't work out. This page doesn't work out. I'd go back in the coding and go, okay, this is why. right? And this was like high-level database type program. So the same thing I see in you. It's like, hey, this program is running, and then I go back. I can just read your files, right? Your files, your lineage files, and I go, oh, this is why you're getting the results. So you change the results. You change your coding, and then you'll see the results very different. Okay? And then that's how, for you, for example, you'll start to see the glimmer of actually like staying stable, because you're never really stable either. How can you be? Because you're always like trying to climb uphill on a slippery slope, from what I'm seeing as well. Does that make sense? So you're very, very cautious as well, because if you make one wrong move, you'll slide all the way down the hill as well. Right? And that's happened more and more in relationships, finances, being a woman. So since we don't realize, say, what a strong woman is, what do? We adopt a male pattern frequency, like you have at some level, to say stake your place in life, right? And then you hold on to that, and you won't let anybody distort you or like push you around. But then relationships become very, say, unaffectionate in that respect as well, because now you've got a male frequency wrapped around you. Does that make sense? To protect who you are. So I can help, as I've been talking, just helping you delete that. Things will fall apart for you, by the way, okay? Because they have to. And then this time, when you reset yourself, you'll do it from, a female perspective. Right? And then that's where you start to, say, build your divine essence of who you are. Okay? Yes? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Right. Um, so we can talk about that too. Um, yeah. So the question was, his wife runs a male energy, right? And let's talk about, say, different. Is it really a male energy, or is it really a fearful female frequency, right? Because she always seems like she's trying to hide. She kind of feels like a mouse trying to like escape, not getting caught, from what I'm seeing. And then she gets to the point that she gets so trapped, and then that's where, the relationship or the frequency or the tension between you two rise really high, because she feels trapped. So what is she going to do? She's going to lash out just like a little mouse would. And then you run because you're dominated by, say, a mother or a female type frequency. That makes sense to you? Kind of like and again, a weak female type frequency from what I'm seeing. So she would lash out at you because, for example, she couldn't lash out at your father. So you're the next best thing to lash out at because you're a male. Does that make sense to you, my friend? Yeah. So now you're running a female frequency, right? That you get, say, pushed upon by females. So you'll see not just your wife, but then a lot of your relationships with females like that. And then also males that run female patterns. They'll treat you the same way. Does that make sense? So, or no? Okay. So you're attracting, so you're creating that propensity for your wife to treat you like that, and then she's running scared. I don't see her as a male frequency, but females who are put in a corner. Look what happens to, say, a female animal. Their child is in danger. What do? They get really aggressive, far more dangerous than any male would. Right? So that's the pattern that she's running, a very scared female. So, and a very insecure female. So, by the way, intimacy and so on, right? It never works out if you're running female or male frequencies. So let me give you an example. Say you're trying to be a successful woman, right? Nowadays, right? Females work, males work. And people go, well, it's because, we spend all day at the office, we're tired, right? We come home, there's no time to become intimate and sexual and all that. right? And then the relationships start to separate and so on. It's not because of that at all. It's got nothing to do with it. What happens is because the females run a male, they're in a male, a man's world, right? That's what it's called, a man's world, right? They've entered the job market. So what have they adopted? Male frequencies to be successful, especially if you're at the higher levels, CEOs and, right? Successful sales individuals, right? So they're creating a male frequency to be successful at work. They come home, they're running testosterone. So now you have two male frequencies when you come at home. That's not very attractive, right? It just isn't. To the guy, and again, guys are more, they're, they'll just have sex just to have sex. But for the females, right, they need to be, pleased or whatever. What do they call it? Foreplay, right? So they come home, they're running female frequencies. They're not going to be in the mood. Now, again, you've got two male frequencies running. So intimacy, connection, and anything like that just doesn't work. And then we blame our partners for the issues. But it's really about not having, say, strong female frequencies. You can, say, have, and that's where those relationships fall apart, by the way. I'm probably explaining your relationship from what I'm saying. So in a different scenario, and I'll give you both sides, if you were a strong, say, female, right, and you ran, and you became successful in a man's world using a strong female, well, your femininity, your strength would come forward throughout the day. So you'd go home, and this is the plausible scenario because it happens quite a bit. You go home and you're excited to share what you've dominated or what you've succeeded in life. Does that make sense? So you're more, say, in tune, and you see that male frequency, and then at night you would recharge. And that's what, say, the male and females actually would do for each other. They'd go home and recharge each other. But again, in today's society, the males don't know that they're males. They don't know how to run male frequencies. They're very insecure, right? So they're not running, say, solid male frequencies. The females are running male frequencies as well. So it doesn't make for great sex or great intimacy, by the way. So I don't know how that came up, but I'm just reading you guys, whether you're online. Yes. Yes. So as I talk about a subject, and that's why I might say jump around, by the way, okay? As I read, again, whether you're here or online, as I read you, I talk about those subjects. Yes, so helping you, say, unwind from those patterns so you can start to understand that you don't have to, say, run a male frequency to be successful in life. You don't have to run a male frequency to, say, be a successful businesswoman. Okay? I know a lot of businesswomen, they're very successful, they make a lot of money. You think they'd be, say, really satisfied, perfect, right? Like many of you women here, you go, oh, I wish I had had that job, or I wish they're in the same position as you are. They're probably far worse because everything's magnified. It's like, gosh, I have all the success, then why is it that I'm not happy? At least you guys have an excuse to look at, right? It's like, well, I'm not successful, or I don't have whatever that they have, right? They don't have a way out. It's like, I have the success. I have, say, this whatever trophy husband, whatever, and was like, why am I not satisfied? Because they're running male frequencies to be successful. So. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Again, a great point. So she's got a business, and then sometimes you said you feel guilty, or you want to make more, or you have the opportunity to make more than your husband, but you don't? Guilty? Right. So she wants to make more than her husband. And that's the paradigm that a lot of, say, in today's society, it happens quite a bit, and it creates a lot of, say, divorces, where the women starts to get really successful, and they start making more than their husbands, and then what do the husbands do? Just because they're not running, say, the proper male frequencies, they feel inadequate. Right? And it shouldn't be that way. They feel inadequate, and then, well, things start to happen. They feel less sexual and all that stuff. So, if you're running, I don't know, is that your husband or? Okay. So he looks like a cool guy. So I don't think he'd actually have, from what I'm seeing, I don't think he'd actually have a problem. He has no problem from what I'm seeing. It's actually from what I'm, just to read you, if you don't mind, is that, your culture, dominates who you think you are. It's not him at all, from what I'm seeing. He's actually willing. I think he'd actually be happier, from what I'm seeing. But your culture says, and this is all in the DNA, right? Through lifetimes, generations of being. You might be Chinese or Japanese. Okay, same. Similar like mindset. So the male always say above the female. So, and that's what you're pushing against. And I think that probably comes, say, from your mom's pattern as well, right? Although she was a very strong male pattern frequency. She could never, say, show her extreme, say, wisdom or intellect or whatever, if I'm reading right, because she was in a man-dominated, say, atmosphere. Does that make sense to you? So hence, you got that same propensity. Hi.
I noticed that because I'm changing, I'm getting angry, and that's really weird because I've been around her. And I feel myself that in order to become stronger, I'm getting angry, and people,
right.
I'm triggered. There's
right.
patterns, and I get very angry. Is it going to change otherwise?
So, correct me. So what you're saying is, like, as you're changing, you're becoming angry, and you're changing through the work that you're doing with me. Does that make sense? So let's talk about that, because a lot of you, again, whether you're new or not, what happens is that as you go higher, and since you've always been, say, walked on, so those individuals who always get pushed, walked on, controlled, what happens is that as you work with me, well, you start to, say, define yourself. So, for example, if anger has been used to control you, like it seems like it has, especially in your younger days, right? From what I'm reading, so what happens is that tool has been very successful to control you. So as you awaken, your higher self or your spirit will turn that tool around, will use that tool for you to define your, say, perimeter or who you are, and then create a boundary so people don't walk all over you. So that's a good thing, okay? And this is where at first you might think, well, that's a strong, say, male pattern, right? And it's not. You've always been, say, trained that being assertive is a male pattern. Being assertive, if you're confident, it doesn't matter if you're male or female. You just are. You can be a strong female. And there's a lot of females that are really powerful, and they have no, say, male frequencies in them, although, we're both, right? So for you, you have to understand that you can be a strong female and be assertive. That, again, family lineage from what I'm seeing, right? There's a lot of religion in you, right, that says females have to be submissive. And you're not Muslim, but although that's, say, stamped on the Muslim religion, right? But then there's, again, the whatever. Well, you're Christian, but there seems to be a Jewish lineage in you as well. So I couldn't. Okay, is that true? Both? Okay, so you get a double whammy of of women having to be, say, submissive. Does that make sense? So it really goes in all the three religions. So, does other people? Oh, you. I'm just gonna grab a drink of water. Go ahead, talk. Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to sort of where this comes from. Not only the ancestral trauma and ancestral victim programs, but down to the lineage that you want to go through past life.
Yeah. Right. So your question is, again, it's kind of a long question. So just to reiterate,
When you're running the victim,
when you're running the victim pattern,
it's coming from ancestral, but and also past life.
okay. So when you're running a victim pattern, can it come from an ancestral and then also past lineage? Yeah, yours is a past life. Yeah, so yours is a merging of the two. So, and then unfortunately, from what I'm seeing, you would tend to marry, if you look at people who've been married in your family, they marry from the same, say, spiritual family, so that victimhood continues or magnifies with every generation. Does that make sense to you? If you look at it? So, yeah, so it can come from both. Okay, so let's talk about, say, victim and then victim type mentalities. Okay, because it's really, really important. Okay, to walk away because it's not just pushing back. So we'll talk about the Me Too pattern or the Me Too, say, movement that's going on. Okay, I think it's a great movement. It's a great opportunity for people to become aware. But then let's turn that Me Too into a Me Never type pattern. Okay, because what we're doing, just like any other, say, war against something, if you've looked, that war has never been able to, say, overturn the distortion that they're trying to fight against, right? So breast cancer, for example, right? When they started the war against breast cancer, right? Wearing the pink ribbons, right? Wearing pink, running, and all those things. Breast cancer has actually increased by that awareness. Why did that happen, right? The war on drugs. There's a hell of a lot of drugs out there, much more so, and very different kinds compared to what was happening in the 60s and 70s, the war on drugs. Why did that happen? The war on, the war on diabetes. When the 70s, when it started, late 70s, from what I'm saying, again, it magnified. The war on cancer. Okay. Back in the day when the first war on cancer started, it was like 1 out of 25 people had cancer. Okay. And I might be off on the statistics, but now I think it's 1 out of 2 or 1 out of 3 have cancer. So why did those wars, and this is the Me Too movement, again, because the reason why, the underlying frequency why, is like whenever you push against something like that, okay, you're pushing for your right to be freed as a woman. That makes sense to you? So the point is that if you're pushing, you're coming from a weak standpoint. Okay? How far and how long do you have to keep pushing? Okay? Unfortunately, like all those other wars I described, it's never gotten to a point that it's overturned because it takes a lot of willpower to, say, change frequencies, underlying frequencies. That makes sense to us? And that's why the Me Too movement, unfortunately, well, hopefully it'll create awareness. But then what I'm trying to do is actually say allow people who have been in the Me Too movement and those people who haven't to start awakening and start identifying all the propensity of being female and getting rid of the distortions of being female that have been coming down through, well, the beginning of time as being female. Does that make sense to you guys? Okay. Once you start to understand that, then you don't have to fight. You just are, and you stand strong, and then you don't get abused. You don't get victimized like a weak female would. Because, well, if you're not running, say, victim-type mentality or victim, and it's not a mentality, it's just a frequency, so it's not your fault. It might be, like in your case, generational, past lifetimes, right? It's got nothing to do with you. You just got handed down, just like your skin color, your eye color, you just got handed down, say, victimhood. So that's what this movement is, the Me Never movement, of really awakening you. And then as you awaken, right, some of you are mothers, your daughters, and even your sons, they start to come from a higher say, respectable pattern. And then that's how we change future generations, because now you're raising strong women that would never even think about doing whatever they did with Harvey Weinstein to, get a part in the play. You don't have to sell yourself short. I mean, we can talk about all that stuff, later on as well. But again, you don't have to. Many women, there was interviews about that, right? These women that were, it's like, well, that's what you have to do to get a part. No, you don't. That's what you thought you had to do. There's a lot of women that didn't do that to get, say, a fantastic part. So, did you have a question? Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Yeah, exactly. So he was talking about the war on whatever. So what you resist, would you get more of? Yes. So the principle is that the more you push back, basically you're creating more frequencies that push back upon you. It's you, right? Just like any argument, right? The more you push back, do you realize that the arguments get louder and louder and louder? And then when you stop arguing and just be and stand your ground, right? It stops. Right? So the same thing here. Let's go ahead and do another meta healing, okay? And we'll get into, say, the deeper meanings or the deeper understandings of, well, it's not about being a woman or a man, but how about just being human? Because that's that first filter. Okay, and I'll describe filters later on. The way, EI, Exponential Intelligence, sees it. But I'll describe, I'll bring in frequencies of, say, being human. Okay? Void of being a man or a woman. So we understand, or we can define being a strong woman. And again, if you're a male, being a strong male. Let's go ahead and take a nice, strong, deep breath in, whether you're here, whether you're online. Again, noticing your spine. Just noticing your spine from top to bottom. Noticing your neck. As you notice your neck, let's go ahead and take a deep breath in, connecting to the group, the mastermind group. We all want to be the strongest version of ourselves, whether male or female. So we're all looking in the same direction. That same direction, right, creates strength, creates momentum. We're all looking the same direction. So with that momentum, we can go further and break away from the stereotypes, the paradigms, that society, or even what we envision being a strong woman is about. Remove that and go back to our original state of who we are. In this case, well, being human. And then a strong breath in again. This time asking ourselves, how do I connect to pure source even stronger? Or, if you'd like, how do I become my limitless self? As you note your breath, as you note your spine from the top, you might actually feel your spine adjust. Notice the top of your shoulders. Notice your spine, upper back. We'll go down to the mid-back. We'd go down to the lower back. We'd go down to your tailbone. We're going to focus in on the sexual organs, so the groin area. as we take a deep breath in, and as we take that breath in, going all the way back to our moment of birth and then beyond, moment of conception. At that time, you could have been either or. Spirit has no preference or no identity of female or male. And then coming into your physical form. Again, the sexual organ is just a switch. One goes in, the other goes out. It's literally the same organ as a baby. So if you start to think of the mechanics of being a woman or a man, just different levels of chemicals, it allows you to be more feminine or more masculine. Different body parts, again, based on the levels of chemicals. In society's views, that's what we're fighting for. That's the level of consciousness that we're at. To really rectify the problem, let's go ahead and take a strong deep breath in. But understand that we're more than just, say, chemical compounds. There must be a deeper essence that controls all of us. What if we understood ourselves at that level? Then the fight for being a man, a woman, and having, say, equal rights wouldn't even exist. Let's help you bring in those frequencies. Let's mostly stay in silence as I work on you, whether you're here in person or whether you're online. Helping you bring in your, say, original source code, void of male, female identities that we've gleaned from thousands of years of distortion in today's societies or concepts of what a male or female is about. All you have to do is note your breath. If your mind wanders, no worries. Pay attention to your spine and allow your mind to wander. The spine from the top all the way to the bottom and into your sexual organs. Just noticing your breath. Just noticing the space around you, hopefully resetting you. As we come back into this moment in time, look at your definition of, say, being a woman. Has it changed a little bit? You get a closer reference point. All right? Hopefully that's... Although some of you might be feeling not that great about yourself because now you get to see a real reference point of where you should be compared to where you are. Same thing with guys, by the way. We'll talk about that as well. We'll talk about detox. So let's talk about, because we don't have much time. We end at 9? A little past that? Yeah. So let's talk about, say, what a strong divine woman would look like. That makes sense? Okay. And through the work that I've done throughout the years, again, tens of thousands of people, most of my clients being women, from what I've seen is that women who carry, say, male patterns, they literally would look more male, more masculine. In fact, I was just talking earlier, there's a lot of, like individuals who are, there's a lot of guys who are French, they have a female tendency, right? Or a little sensitive, they look more feminine. And when I was back there, I could realize why. Because back then, I'm sure they lost a lot of, guys in the war, so the females had to take on, say, the responsibility of being male, right? Or the male pattern, because they didn't know how to be strong females. So the men in that culture feel a little more sensitive to me, or a little more feminine, and then the females are a little more male to me. So, and I'm not saying everybody, but a good number of them. So the Chinese individuals, if you look at their culture, and again, no offense, it's just something that is, they look at androgynous. To me, I was in China from the back. You couldn't really tell between female and male. Again, that's not all, but a high percentage. So why does that happen? Because in their culture, we've literally they've through the government, they've shifted everybody to become androgynous, if that makes sense. If you're of Chinese descent type, or even maybe the Japanese, right? Because it's not about being man or woman; it's being an optimal person to, say, output stuff. So it's about productivity. So what happens if you become a strong, say, female, you start looking like a female. So with those individuals who had, say, manly, a feel to them, and even look manly, they start to become softer. And we'll talk about, say, what that's about or why that happens. They start to look more curvaceous or more sensual, because that's the way females are supposed to be. There's no weakness about that. Right? It's just a strong female. And more importantly, at a frequency level or at an intellect level, they are of a strong, say, female identity. There's no weakness at that intellect level, so they own being sexual, and it's not about the way they look physically. Yes, that helps. But if you've ever looked at somebody, and I'm just throwing it out there, but if you've looked at somebody that might have been not, say, physically attractive, but they have that sensuality and they're actually really attractive, that's what I'm talking about. And if you are physically attractive, well, that just adds on to it. So it goes deeper than, say, physical appearance. And this really is important for women because as they age, right, as we all age, well, we don't look our best, let's say, or, we get wrinkles or we get whatever. But if you've looked at those women who are really powerful and really, say, divine feminine, they're still really attractive, really, even at the older ages, right? And that's where we want to be. That's part of that divine female frequency. Other questions on, say, definitions of divine? By the way, you can still you don't have to say support. Being complete like a divine female, that doesn't mean that you're self-sufficient or anything, that you don't need, say, a man. In fact, you do need a man from a very different perspective, again, to recharge, to reset, to identify who you are. Okay, and if you go back in time, like Napoleon Hill back in the day, I think the book was written in the 50s or 60s, you would look at any man who had been successful, they always had a female counterpart behind them, not necessarily their wife, but a woman that they truly loved, that propagated them to, say, higher levels. Right? Same thing goes with women as well. So. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Right. So your question was, you're always alone, you're in the same city, but you can't. Yeah, it's not the city. So, right. So, uh, you're finding, say, solutions to the problem. It's because of this, and you basically said all these physical things. You're in the same city. You're in the city. There's nobody there, or whatever. Again, it was always these physical issues. There's nothing wrong. You can find somebody in this city. It's a huge city. Well, wherever you are. Does that make sense? What happened now? So, right. So, whatever it is, you're basing all the physical, say, excuses, but in reality, even if you're together, you'd feel alone. So it's really, say, an underlying frequency of being or feeling alone. That's, you've been alone. It's not just this relationship, by the way. You've been alone, as I tap into you, since you were a little kid, early teens. You were alone. So it's a frequency of being alone. We'd have to, say, change that. That makes sense to you? And then that's where you would, say, be complete.
Aware to feel the frequency of frequency rather than frequency as a human being.
So, so what was your question? So, you don't understand the importance of being a female or male frequency, and then to be aware. So, what part don't you? I'm not getting what part you don't understand. Okay. Well, I don't know. Are female frequencies more affectionate? I see a lot of mothers that aren't. They're female and they're not really affectionate. So right. So you're looking at that reference point as, again, logistical, physical, just like, and that's what that last exercise was about. So most of your definitions go back to females are this. They're supposed to be affectionate. They're supposed to be nurturing. They're supposed to be, but aren't males supposed to be the same thing? Right? So I don't know how we got defined in those respects, right? And that maybe that's the distortion of society. But yeah, we move away from those, and that's why it's not, say, something specific, and maybe that's what's distorting you. It's not like females are, affectionate. But basically, well, let me define, say, in EI perspective, what, say, male frequency is and a strong female frequency, and how they blend together, okay, to combine, say, a oneness or a strength, okay? So, so female frequencies, they're more of a attractive or a pulling frequency, okay? And male frequencies are basically more of a pushing. okay, frequency. So, and both are needed to ascend higher and higher. So, for example, say a female frequency, and again, both aspects are needed, right? Although you can run from one aspect. You can be a strong male or a strong female and still accomplish the same thing, but it's just slower for you, and you won't get into the higher, say, essences or the higher realities because you need both sexes. So a female will create, say, a nurturing environment, okay, for, say, the kids or for that male individual, okay, and it creates an environment where, say, it creates a strong environment or the propensity to grow higher. So it strengthens that male. Does that make sense? So it creates that male, and then it pushes that male to a higher frequency. Okay? And then what happens is that male will pull the female frequency up. Does that make sense to you? Okay? That's why you need female and male. Does that make sense? Okay? And then that's how you ascend higher and higher to, it's not about the physicalness, although if you put it in physical terms, right, what happens is that the female creates a strong, nurturing environment for that man. And this is in Sexual Transmutation, the book I talked about, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill. That female creates a strong propensity, right, for that male. It creates direction. It creates, say, passion, desire to create anything that the woman, say, really desires. And it's not about the women, but it creates, say, that strength, that fire in that male. The male projects out and then succeeds at something, pulls the female along or pushes the female along, and that's how you keep, say, leapfrogging, and that's why that's in physical terms, right? Or physical success, like in relationships or business or anything. That's the way females and males work, especially if they're a couple. But in today's society, unfortunately, we're in competition with each other, right? Females are better, males are better, and then nobody goes ahead. They just turn around in cycles, and it's a downward cycle. So I didn't explain it quite as beautifully as I did a while back. There was another talk I did, and we got more in depth, but it didn't come out the right way. Sorry, guys. Hi. How do you... Oh, yeah, that's a great question because most individuals... So how do you deal with the anxiety of aging in the feminine divine? So most individuals, right, and most of society, we identify with how beautiful we are in today's society with how we look physically, right? I actually work with a lot of beautiful women, a lot of models and so on like that, Hollywood-type individuals, and they don't look really that beautiful on the outside. They're beautiful, and that's what today's standards are, right? Or marketing materials, right? You have to look a certain way. You have to wear certain clothes. You have to wear certain handbags, whatever like that. So we define our outside as that's our beauty, right? That beauty marker. If you're not like that, then, well, you're not beautiful. Unfortunately, many beautiful women don't feel beautiful when I tap into them. These are top, some of the really beautiful women, and these are models. They're very successful, and they don't feel beautiful. So one, I ask you, is that an indicator on how beautiful you are? Because most women don't think they're that beautiful, right? So if you turn it into, say, the divine feminine, the strength, that beauty that comes from within, you actually, say, see yourself, no matter how perfect you are compared to, say, media standard, you actually see the beauty inside you, no matter if you're not the perfect shape, the perfect whatever, right? And besides, those standards change. Back in the 20s, being flat-chested was in. I think in the 30s, 40s, it was, being, more out, more voluptuous. There you go. And sorry. And then it changed back in the 60s, and now I don't know where it is, but back and forth. So those standards of beauty, obviously change from culture and time and so on like that. So the divine feminine, your beauty comes from inside. And if you've noticed those women who are of the divine feminine, and there's very few, if you've noticed, they actually stay more youthful longer, right? Because they're not worried about their looks as much. That's just a standard. That's just like it just happens just because they're beautiful on the inside. Right? In fact, we do a lot of frequency spas, and what we do is we help you start to become or understand the beauty that you are on the inside, and the frequency treatments that the spa treatments that you do, whatever it is that women do to their faces or bodies, they actually last longer because they're resonating at a more youthful, more divine frequency. So, okay. And like I said, I work with a lot of those beautiful women, and they don't feel that attractive to me because I see their internal workings. So, and that's why. I guess that's a different subject. We'll talk about that later. But. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Leading by example, are you, say, the optimum example that you could show her? Yeah. Yeah. So the question was, how do I, say, lead my daughter to be, say, the optimal divine person? So and the reason why I asked is, if you're leading by example, I just kind of see you not at the optimal level because there's a lot of fear in you, a lot of frigidity from what I'm seeing in you as well. So that's not really a strong female. For you specifically, though, say I would talk to your daughter about, say, your shortcomings, okay, and the way you wish you were at her age. Does that make sense? And maybe go through some of the mistakes that you made rather than hiding it and try to be perfect, because that, you always try to paint this perfect facade, which actually distorts your daughter, because, if you're painting this perfect facade and then there's a lot of insecurities that I see in you as well as she does at an intuitive level. I mean, kids are brilliant. They'll go, well, is that the way we're supposed to be? Kind of strong on the outside, weak on the inside. So just show the weaknesses that you are. And then you two can figure, actually, especially if the work that you're doing with me, right? It'll open you up both to see the weaknesses that you are, and then both of you can figure out how to become strong, and that's how you create a strong, say, mother-daughter relationship as well, right? Because you guys are both on kind of like thin ice between the two of you, by the way, from what I'm seeing, right? So, did you have a question, sweetie?
Earlier you mentioned the word fighting and becoming stronger.
Mm-hmm.
I myself have grown up and have always placed my family as my top priority, to a point where I've now been...
Lost yourself?
Yes, and I've lost myself. I've been humiliated to the point where I feel like I don't know what to do.
Right.
How do I take myself back up and become stronger?
Right. So just to reiterate for the audience, online audience, so basically you've spent all your life taking care of your family or putting your family first, and now as you get age, you've lost yourself. Does that make sense? And now you don't know what to do or don't know who you are. Fortunately, that's a lot of people that do that, right? We put our kids first, we put our spouse first, we put our family first, whatever, and then we get to an older age, and then we have the empty nest syndrome and all that because we lost our time of identifying who we are. It doesn't benefit your kids anyway in any shape or form, because what they'll do is they'll repeat that pattern as they grow older. So it's really important for you to identify who you are. I mean, you still have, no matter how old you are, you still have a chance to, say, recapture who you are, right? Even if you're that empty nester. So for you, and it's not just family, but it's everybody. You always put everybody else first, from what I'm seeing. That's kind of a culture pattern, okay? And it goes actually deeper than that from what I'm reading you. It's almost like a slave-type mentality. It's not that you just put yourself put yourself, and I think a lot of women do that as well, maybe you're a little different, is that, women put their kids first. So we'll just talk about that, and I'll just work on you as well, and then I'll give you specifics about what's going on with you. Does that make sense? So what happens is, and this is where women start to get burdened by the children that they have, which is unfortunate because, if you're burdened by the children that you have, you raise them, they grow up into adults, they become a burden to society. It's just a plain flat out frequency, right? If they're resonating of being burdened, right, or you're being burdened by them, those kids are really, really smart. What are they going to be thinking about? What are they enmeshed in? What frequencies are you bathing them in? You're a burden to me. So they grow up. They'll be a burden to somebody else. They'll be a burden to society. They'll be a burden to humanity. Okay? Many women think that it's a badge of honor to be rushed everywhere by their kids. Right? I have to take them to soccer. I have to take them to gymnastic. I have to do this. I have to do that. I have to go there for them. I have to go to PTA conferences, whatever, right? It becomes a burden for that family. I do the same thing, by the way. My other wife, not my other wife, my last wife. I don't know how to describe. Sorry, I'm new. I'm new with. Anyway, the mother of my kids. Let's put it that way. She was never around, so I played both roles. I played a strong male pattern, frequency. The nice thing about that, okay, and I'll give you my example, is that the nice thing about that is if I play a strong male frequency, I'm still nurturing. I learned how to cook and did all the woman things that we do. Very, very powerful. The nice thing is that my daughters, they feel safe because that's what male frequencies are supposed to do for females, right? They're supposed to feel safe so they understand who they are. They get to explore who they are. They get to expand. And then what do? If they're like that, they become that nurturing environment that I was talking about, right? Which makes the males, more nourished. And then the males can do what they do, right? Expand and explore. Right? So from that preference, I actually enjoyed taking my kids to wherever. We made it, an adventure time. I've raised great kids from my perspective, and a lot of people's perspective. So coming back to you, when, most women think of it as a burden or, again, an honor, right? A red badge of honor that they're doing something, right? And it's costing them their life. It's a distorting frequency overall because look at you. You feel empty inside. You just feel like your aunt, by the way. Your aunt did the same thing from what I'm seeing, right? She feels totally empty inside, and then as you guys age. So it's not even your pattern. That's just what you do, right? You're supposed to give up your life. In your culture, basically in your family culture, you're supposed to give up your life to serve, say, your family. Look at where it's gotten you. It hasn't gotten your family really far. You guys still feel empty. You might be successful, but then again. So, it's a great opportunity, whatever you're doing for your kids, to make it an adventure for yourself and learn and actually keep it as an honor for you to ascend higher and to expand rather than going, I'm going to take care of my kids' stuff first, and then when they grow up, I'll live my own life. You've wasted a lot of time. There's a lot of, say, downtime, free time, things like that you can grow and expand. And you can actually, say, learn from your kids and integrate. And that way the strife between the two of you, because now they're not feeling burdened, they actually feel, say, part of you, right? So you actually, say, connect with each other more. That's how you become a strong female as well, right? You have that nurturing environment for your children, whether they're men, whether they're boys or girls. So, and they'll nurture you so you don't get drained as much, especially if you're working. If you're a single parent and you're working, just think if you had nurturing kids, you come home, right, and they're taking care of you, right, versus forcing them to take care of the house, whatever. They just automatically do it, right? So for you, that's where you come from. You come from a slave-type frequency. Again, it's not you. So no matter what you do, say that you make millions of dollars, right? no matter how that comes. That's not the point. You make millions of dollars, what will happen, and I think you've been successful or somewhat successful here and there, it's burdened you, or your business has burdened you. Does that make sense? Your success has burdened you or enslaved you, because your deep frequency is about being enslaved. Okay. So, again, being with me, removing that, and for you, you'll probably hate your life. And that's a good thing, because you'll hate your life and you'll push that away, right? You'll finally say stand up for yourself and start to get selfish, so to speak, and then you'll hate that because that's against her conditioning as well, but you'll get sucked into it. And you get more and more selfish, and then as you get more and more selfish, you get, say, self-confident in yourself. By the way, there's nothing wrong with being selfish and being complete on your own. If you're stabilized yourself, and if you're strong yourself, just imagine how many other people you could help. So there's nothing wrong about being selfish or taking the time for yourself to commit to yourself. You raise strong kids, because if you're strong, what are you reflecting upon your kids? What are you reflecting upon your spouse, right? So you'll feel like that, and then you'll feel guilty. That's why I'm saying that ahead of time for you. So if you're going to go through that pattern, I'm just giving you a forewarning, because that's the process that you'll go through. Okay? So I was going to say something else about being selfish. Oh, right. If you guys are religious, and most of you come from a religious background, look at Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, all those great individuals. What did they do? They disappeared for 10, 15 years. They didn't give a damn, if you look at it, about anybody. They disappeared. They went out. They understood who they were, right? They went down. They really learned. They came back, and then they helped society massively, right? Or they should have, unless their religions got distorted. But so why not do the same thing? Take time for your own space. You'll raise strong kids that way, by the way. Okay. Other questions? As we end, you have a question? You have a question about patterns? Sure.
So let's say I know some of the patterns that I'm running myself, and then my ex-husband, and then my kids have their own patterns.
Sure.
So if I work on mine, would it affect my lineage or not?
Really good question. So, again, somebody that's been working with me. So she's talking about patterns. So if you delete your patterns, is it going to affect them? And is it going to affect your kids? There's a yes and no. And the reason, it seems like your kids are older, right? So if they're younger, maybe like from 15 and below, they would automatically say, get reconditioned. So as you delete your patterns, they get to see, oh, mom or dad deleted the patterns. I can delete mine as well. Right? As they get older, they have to make a decision on whether they want to delete those distorting patterns on their own. They might even go through the same experience, right, of say, confirming that deletion like you would. Does that make sense to you? I help you delete a pattern. You might re-experience it just to say no to that pattern or confirm that deletion. So your older kids might do that. There's, how many kids? How many marriages did you have? I see 3. So. Really? Okay. I see 3. We're all, yeah. So it's like 3 really like marriage type relationships or love, deeper relationships. Does that make sense? 3 of them? Yeah. So you were engaged once but not married. Well, that would count as 1, and then probably some other one that you actually wanted to marry, but it never happened, from what I'm seeing. So the reason why it comes up, I'm not like delving into your personal life, but I can see it anyway. But that pattern is like releasing from you, because you still hold on to that the first relationship that you really, really say truly fell in love with. That still is like bound around you, and that's why the other 2 relationships, you're always comparing those 2 relationships to that last one, the original one that you had. So that pattern is like releasing and deleting. So I'm just telling you as a side note, okay? So not to get too personal or anything, but what the hell? Right. So as you, well, again, back to your question. So yeah, it's all really dependent on, say, how awakened or how realized your kids are, and your exes are. And you don't have to worry about your exes really, nor your kids. Oh, that's good. That's good. Hey, sweetie.
I just wondered whether you deleted our patterns and put us onto.
Oh, yes. So you're wondering if I deleted your patterns in this group. So yes. So the way my abilities work, I don't have to work on you, say, one-on-one, okay, to help you delete your pattern. Because I'm not really the one who deletes your patterns, although, it's easier to say it that way. Although, again, so what happens is, as I work on a frequency, like whatever we were talking about, I generate frequencies, the idealized frequencies for you. So the idealized frequencies, we all have, say, the same base frequencies. That makes sense as humans. Does that make sense to you? Right. So what I do literally is I help you awaken your higher self, just the way I was awakened through the too near death. So as I speak, since I'm at a, say, higher frequency from the too near death, it pushes you to, helps you, activates. It pushes you to remember who you really are, your original form, for you, a divine feminine being. So, and then that's how you, say, remove all those distortions. So yes, in that sense, yes. I'm helping you delete and edit and so on like that. Okay? That makes sense? Yeah. So at a group level, okay, again, I don't have to work on you specifically. I don't need to know exactly what issues are you have, because, again, I'm helping you awaken at a group level, your higher self, and then you know exactly what's going on with you. Although specifically I can read you and see what's going on and, give you more momentum in that direction. So why don't we do this? We have a few minutes left. We'll do a last meditation and help you, say, understand, say, a realized divine feminine being. And again, if you're a male, we didn't get any questions online. So after this, we'll take a few questions online. All right. So let's go ahead and take a nice, deep, strong breath in. Again, just noticing the space around you, noticing you. Start over. A strong, deep breath in. Again, noticing where you are. We've done this a couple of times. So it's easier for you to drop down into those deeper levels. Wonderful breath in again, connecting to the group dynamics. At the mastermind, we're all wanting, say, that abundance of becoming a divine feminine or masculine. We're all looking at the same direction. So we'll go forward, creating strength, momentum, and then a strong breath in again. Start asking ourselves, how do I connect to pure source even stronger? Or how do I become my limitless self? And in the first meta healing, remember I said the strongest possible female representation of who you are. This time, I'll help you bring in the frequencies of that feminine divine, right? That exponential intelligence definition, that oneness, that trueness of, say, a feminine divine. As a note, it's no body shape, no face shape, nothing like that. It's just a strong feminine divine. Right? And then for the males, once you understand that feminine divine, you would reflect the opposite, or the male version of that. All you have to do is take that breath in, strong breath in. Notice from the top of your head the back, top of your spine, your neck, to the upper back, the mid back, the lower back, noticing your spine into the groin, the tailbone, and then again into your sexual organs. As you note your sexual organs, taking a strong deep breath in from the groin area, through the spine, up your spine, up the back, through the top of the neck vertebrae, and into your head. So noticing that central nervous system, noticing the left, right hemispheres of the brain. So connecting you at a conscious level, again, brain coordinating with your identity of who you are, male, female, at a much deeper level. So you become a physical representation of your divinity that you come from. Just noting your breath. Let's go a little deeper, just because we can. Seems like you've, almost all of you, having a higher understanding of that divine feminine. Go a step further. I'll help you embody that divine feminine into your essence. So we avoid judgment calls on, say, the shape of our body, our look, right? Our emotions. Is again physical aspects of us, emotional values, or again all distorted from culture, society standards. What we'll do is we'll count 15, count up to 15. All you have to do is pay attention to your forehead, your solar plex, and right below your groin, so where your thighs would touch. For some reason, those 3 points come up. At spirit level, obviously no points, but physical level, it transforms into that understanding, that connection between your higher divine sense and your physical form. Breathing in from the forehead, acknowledging solar plex, and then right by the thigh area, between your knees and your groin. And if you can sense those 3 areas at the same time, and then just hold on to that focus as we count out from 0 to 15 with each step, with each number, ascending number. Getting closer and closer to who you would be like, or who you would feel like, that essence of you, if you understood who you were as a divine, feminine, or male. So again, noticing, focusing on those 3 points: forehead, solar plex, and it's just a dot, really. So right where your ribs connect, right above there is that point, right, dead center. And then the dead center between your thighs, halfway between your groin and your knees. Again, they're just dots like dime size. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. As we just stop time or dramatically slow it down. 6, 7, paying attention to those 3 areas. This is not hypnosis, just helping you reprogram yourself at a much deeper level for those new individuals. 8, 9, 10. Again, just focusing in on the dot, becoming aware of the rest of your body. 11, 12, 13, 14. Notice how you're feeling. 15. Go a little deeper. 16. 17. 'If you can, I'd highly recommend going deeper. If I keep counting, I'll be right behind you, creating and generating those frequencies to help you along. Just noticing your breath. Just noticing those 3 points. Noticing how you're feeling. As a note, once you understand, once you integrate those truer frequencies, as you go through life after this, you might feel worse off. And it's not that you're worse off. It's just that you've set a higher standard for yourself. So you might feel worse off, which is a great motivational factor for you to break away from those patterns that doesn't serve you anymore. Right? So be aware of that. You're feeling worse after this. Rejoice, because now you get to see all those patterns that aren't you as you get frustrated, angry, whatever that you might be going through, to again separate yourself from the distorted, especially if you're a victim type frequency that's running. Right? You have to get to the point where you stand up for yourself and go no more. So be aware of that. That's the goal that we're shooting for. Again, that frequency that I helped you create. Strong deep breath in. As we end, coming back into this point, noticing those 3 points. Noticing how you might feel. Kind of going back to your definition of becoming a strong woman. Seems like that's changed for many of you. I see. A truer version, a timeless version of a strong woman. So keep that in the back of your mind. Any interesting questions online, Faye, or no? Oh, really? Okay. Well, as we end, guys, we might take those questions, the online questions, if they're interesting. We'll put it on a post on Instagram. So follow me on Instagram, and we'll put your questions on Instagram. Okay, if it's a general question. All right, guys. Thanks for being here, guys. Did you guys enjoy it? Very good. Thank you. Oh, this weekend, it's an all-women's show coming up Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's on the website, masajati.com. It's by the airport here out in Toronto. And then also Xponential Intelligence, my podcast. It gives you, say, the science or the mechanics on how or what I do to help you understand so you can do it on your own. Right, anything else? Do you want to just talk?
We have Oracle Circle. It's called an evening of knowing and deserving. Inspiration for the conversation tonight. You can go online and check it out.
Okay. So an Oracle Circle, just to define that, is where we get in a group, and is it going to be online, right? Faye? Okay, it's going to be in person. I think in person might be sold out, but online, and we get into, say, the deeper conversations, and then I work on you at the same time. So, and it's about 3 or 4 hours long, so really intense frequencies. All right? I think that's it. Huh? Thanks for being here, guys. Thanks for those people online. Thanks for being here. Take care.
For more information on my programs, please visit masajati.com. That's MASSAJADY.com.